with that, let us bring in Dr. Sumantra Maitra, global politics expert and senior editor at the American Conservative. So much to get to. Let's start with the Ukraine, what I'm calling bucket first, if you will. What is our end game? In other words, when does this blank check end?
Thank you very much for having me. You're absolutely right. President Biden is trapped by what we call rhetorical maximalism. He promised a lot, trying to appease all factions within his ruling coalition, within his activist base, European allies, Ukraine, and now he doesn't really know how to get back out of it. It's fundamentally an incoherent strategy. So in this particular instance, for example, as Governor Ron DeSantis mentioned earlier on this channel, and Riley Moore mentioned on this show, that Biden has promised that he'd continue to support Ukraine without a strategic outline, a fixed objective, a theory of victory, or a fixed end date. Now, Americans don't really like a strategy without an end game, and polls after polls are showing that. The problem in this is that Ukraine's interest in this war is very different than the American one. The Ukrainian war aims will continue to shift as long as there are unconditional aid and weapons. Ukraine's interest is to defend Ukraine, reconquer Crimea, and even take the war to Russia. America's interest is to defend Kyiv and decimate the Russian ground forces and make Europeans shoulder more burden. The first is achieved. The second won't happen as long as we keep providing weapons and cash without any condition or leverage. Now, we could afford that so far, but we are now at a precipice where we are risking a nuclear war of sorts or a war of attrition with China ramping up production supplies in support of Russia. Neither are good, and the president doesn't really know how to back out of it.
Right, and you talk about the end game, and everybody's talking about the end game, but a lot of people say this war is just unwinnable. So at what point do we just stop writing blank checks to Ukraine and giving them all these weapons?
Well, we could do right at this moment. Ukraine is not a treaty ally. Ukraine, at this point of time, has got no theory of victory either. Like I mentioned, I mean, the Ukrainian war aims, look, they are a protectorate. At the end of the day, we are the ones who are providing weapons and money. Their pension funds are being provided by American taxpayers. They don't have any leverage other than demanding stuff from us. We can stop it at any moment of time. We are not doing it because of a different, problems within our own, ruling coalition. But at this point of time, they don't have a victory, the theory of victory. They lack the manpower to push the Russians out of the positions where the Russians are already entrenched. And what happens is when they go on an offense, they would need 3 times more manpower to recover Crimea, to take the war to Crimea, to go on 2 axes on the east and the south. And they don't have the manpower or the mechanism to do that. So we can just stop at any moment.
Looking live right now on your screen, the State of the Nation address there in Moscow, Vladimir Putin expected to speak at any moment now, and I believe, again, that's a wide shot, so it's tough to see, but I'd imagine if they're standing for their leader, Vladimir Putin. Obviously, it's in Russian, so we're not going to be able to listen in, but there you see him getting ready to talk. Obviously, Vladimir Putin's a threat to Ukraine. He's also a threat to Poland, and Poland's consul general in New York is detailing his country's need for more U.S. troops. Listen.
Now we'll like to see increased presence, permanent presence of U.S. troops right at the doorstep of the ongoing war, which is Poland. We think that this is a very valid point for our Bucharest 9 countries, that the U.S. troops should be present permanently.
Putting aside for the moment whether you think that's a good or bad idea, you alluded to something earlier, Doctor, the rest of Europe. Again, where is the rest of Europe? Under Trump, at least Trump got NATO allies to, participate a little bit more in the process. Where's the rest of Europe?
That is a very good point. Look, the European strategy, what we say in international relations, is one of buck passing, right? I mean, Europe has got 4 times the population of Russia. Europe has got 18 times the GDP of Russia. The manpower of Russia is already decimated. They can't control Kyiv. They don't have the production capacity other than, if China starts ramping up production and supplying them. So Europe can, if they want to, take more burden and shoulder more burden in European security. The reason they don't do that is because of 2 things. One, on one hand, America doesn't really want European Union to be a strategic rival to us. So Europe is obviously kind of like divided in their strategy. They are having productions and there have been duplication of resources, as what we call it. And the other side is Europe doesn't really want to do something. The western parts of Europe, for example, in Germany and France and in Belgium and Luxembourg, they don't really face any threat from Russia. And the eastern parts of Europe do. Because of the expansion of the European Union, there is this strategic asymmetry between Germany and Poland, for example. Poland obviously faces the threat from Russia because there's a war going on right on the border. But Western Europe doesn't really face that. So there is this, problem, and we are not being able to force them to do anything. And as long as America is providing with aid and weapons and money, as long as American men are guarding European frontiers, they don't have they don't have the worry to do anything about it.
Right. And then while President Biden was in Ukraine, a top Chinese diplomat is visiting Moscow. And then the U.S. is concerned China could send weapons and ammo to Russia. We're actually going to listen to the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations saying Chinese aid to Russia would actually be crossing the line. Watch this.
Efforts by the Chinese and others to provide lethal support to the Russians in their brutal attack against Ukraine, that is unacceptable. Again, that would be a red line.
You know, there's two parts to this. When you hear that soundbite, crossing this red line, first off, I don't think China or Russia cares about any lines, to be quite honest with you. But what happens next if they do cross this line, not only for Ukraine and Poland, but also for the rest of the world and any of Ukraine's allies?
Absolutely. Look, the interest of China in this conflict is very crucial. They don't want Russia to fall. You know, one, they're robbing it against the claim of rules-based order. To them, if we can take part in a regional war of backing a side, so can they. Like, it's about power play. There is no morals or values in this case. And the second point is what you mentioned, is that they want the U.S. to be bogged down in Europe. Now, contrary to the conventional wisdom that if the U.S. isn't involved in Ukraine, then rival powers will see it as weakness, the Chinese do a very different calculation. To them, as long as the U.S. is bleeding in Europe, by producing and supplying to the point of inflation and insolvency, the U.S. cannot pivot to Asia. The Chinese can outproduce us by at least 8 times. They have a population of over 1 billion people and intact manufacturing capacity. In fact, what we planned to do to Russia and Ukraine, the Chinese plan to do to us. In international relations, we call this strategy bloodletting. If Russia, Europe, and U.S. bleeds dry in a regional war of attrition, in a region which is at best of a peripheral interest to the direct American homeland, China continues to do its path of unrivaled hegemony. Like, I think it's about time we start to think, not from our point of view of morals of what we are doing is right for Ukraine, but from a strict point of strategic interest. Look, if we continue to do this in Europe, we are giving China a blank check to kind of bleed us dry.
And we need to remember, China has the people, Russia has the oil. Combine those two things, and that is a deadly prescription for the United States of America. And just quickly, on this red line, Obama mentioned a red line. That red line was crossed. There were no consequences. Yeah. So to the extent that you float out this red line language and then don't back it up on the world stage once, the next time you do it, it's like crying wolf. You don't get the effect that you want. Dr. Sumantra Maitra, amazing insight. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.